Hello guys and girls listening to this. This is Rihapega89, and today I will tell you about a case which was pretty well known here in Mexico, but not really known in other parts of the world. The case of La Mataviejitas, or the Old Lady Killer, which, as the name implies, was a serial killer that took the life of at least 11 confirmed victims, but the numbers could go as high as 49. This case had a lot of media attention, especially during the early 2000s, and that's why I find it shocking that I couldn't find much information in English sites. Most of the information I had translated from Spanish. But anyway, let's talk about this case. It was 1998 in Mexico City, when lots of crimes towards old ladies started. At first, they looked like robberies, but soon those crimes will escalate to be more and more violent, until they turned deadly. The authorities were heavily criticized by the media for dismissing evidence that a serial killer was at work in Mexico City as merely media sensationalism, as late as the summer of 2005. So yeah, guys and girls, just a little parenthesis here to give you an idea. Like, this is how Mexico operates. Like, if there is something negative, usually politics, police, whatever, they probably will, like, say it's fake news or sensationalism by the media. Like, that's been, like, ever since I was born, like 30 years ago, that's been the case. But anyway, let's continue. Soon after setting an investigation in motion, the police incurred further criticism by launching what one journalist described as a ham-fisted and unproductive swoop on Mexico's travestites. So I guess I need to give you some context on why this happened, why the police was against transvestite prostitutes at the early stages of the case. And that was because at first the police thought that this was the work of a man dressed as a woman. And the reason why that was what they thought was that they thought, like, the modus operandi was that this killer could get access to their victims' homes if he dressed as a woman, like a way to deceive the victims, I guess. And also at the same time, it just goes to show you how machist and sexist Mexico is. Like, the whole police thought like this had to be the work of a man. Like, there was no way a woman could have killed people. That was what the police thought at the time. When you think about it, like, if they didn't have that sexist thinking, like, probably they could have saved people if they just had, like, if they didn't narrow the suspects to only men, like, the investigation could have probably gone smoother. But yeah, Mexico, yeah. Some reports stated that a corpulent woman with a red blouse had been seen in different crime scenes. But the police didn't pay much attention to those reports, their suspect being a man and all that, right? In fact, at some points the police thought that maybe two people were behind these killings. And they again went with the theory that it must have been a man dressed as a woman who had committed the crimes. So the police either didn't believe or didn't want to believe different testimonies of people that actually said that they had seen a woman. The police was like, nope, it must have been a man dressed as a woman. That's also the reason why the police started attacking the transvestite prostitutes, as I told you earlier. They very likely thought that one of them must have been the killer, I guess. And of course the killings continued, and just in case you don't remember, these killings started around the mid-90s and they continued until 2005, so almost 10 years. And then a special division was specifically created for this particular crime. This division was in charge of creating the criminal profile of the killer and the victims. So I'm gonna read the killer's profile. The killer was about 1.75 meters tall, which is around 5'9", between 40 and 50 years old, and was unemployed or with a poorly paid job. And the criminal used public transport, and it was probably a man dressed as a woman. The police really liked that theory for some reason. They wouldn't let it go. As for the victim's profile, was that they were women between 65 and 90 years old, and that they lived alone, so they were at least middle to high level income ladies. With this information, they made a map following the trails of different victims. So now that I have talked about these crimes, let's talk a bit about Juana Barraza, the woman who actually committed all these crimes. Juana Barraza was born in Epazoyucan, Hidalgo, a rural area north of Mexico City, on December 27, 1957. Sadly, as is often the case with killers, Juana had a very bad childhood, and one of the most traumatic events for her was when her mother, Justa Samperio, who was an alcoholic, reportedly exchanged her for 3 beers to a man who raped her, and by whom she became pregnant with a son. She had 4 children in total, although her eldest son died from injuries sustained in a mugging. Through her life, she had different jobs. But interestingly enough, prior to her arrest, Barraza was a professional wrestler under the ring name of La Dama del Silencio, the Lady of Silence. A theory of mine is that this was Barraza's way of coping with whatever pain she was bearing. She probably felt cathartic wrestling, like punching and kicking the other wrestlers may have been a way for her to discharge all her frustrations. And maybe one day it just wasn't enough for her and she needed more than just kicks and punches. I mean, that's just my theory, like some random thoughts I had, but wrestling can be cathartic. But going back to the case at hand, with the profile and the map that limited the cases to a certain zone of Mexico City, at least the investigators were in the right direction. Bernardo Batiz, the chief prosecutor in Mexico City, initially profiled the killer as having a brilliant mind, being quite clever and careful, and suggested that the killer probably struck after gaining the trust of the intended victim. Investigating officers suspected that the killer posed as a government official, offering victims the chance to sign up for welfare programs. But the search for Barraza was complicated by conflicting evidence, and there was also something very particular, an odd coincidence which also distracted the investigation. At least 3 of Barraza's victims own a print of an 18th century painting by French artist Jean-Baptiste, Boy in a Red Waistcoat. So police thought that this was perhaps a clue, or that it was connected, when it was nothing more than just a coincidence. But that coincidence, it kinda hindered the investigation process. Although slow, the investigation was still in the correct track. They had finally narrowed the zones in which crimes were being committed, and outside of the suspect being a male, their profile was pretty accurate. Finally, a major breakthrough in the case occurred on 25th of January 2006, when a suspect was arrested fleeing from the home of the serial killer's latest victim, Ana Maria de los Reyes Alfaro, who lived in the Venustiano Carranza borough of Mexico City. Alfaro, 82, had been strangled with a stethoscope. To the surprise of many Mexicans who had supposed the killer to be male, the suspect detained was Juana Barraza, 48, a female wrestler known professionally as the Silent Lady. So as I had said, guys and girls, Mexico, pretty sexist country. Not only the police was surprised. I remember I was a kid back in that time. I was probably not a kid. I was 15, I guess. But I remember there was a lot of media coverage of this case, and I remember my family they couldn't believe a woman had done all this. So it's not it's probably a lot of the old generation of Mexico is pretty sexist, to be honest. Let's continue. Witnesses at previous murder scenes had described a masculine-looking woman, and police had previously looked for a transvestite, although they later admitted that the former wrestler resembled composite images of the suspect. Barraza closely resembled a model of the killer's features, which showed La Mataviejitas with close-cropped hair, dyed blonde, and a facial mole, and was carrying a stethoscope, pension forms, and a card identifying her as a social worker when she was detained. So yeah, Juana was caught red-handed, or as we say it here in Mexico, con las manos en la masa. So yeah, they caught her with all the evidence they needed, but also Mexico City prosecutors said fingerprint evidence linked Barraza to at least 10 murders, of as many as 40 murders attributed to the killer. The wrestler is said to have confessed to murdering Alfaro and 3 other women, but denied involvement in all other killings. She told reporters she had visited Alfaro's home in search of laundry work. Barraza was tried in the spring of 2008, the prosecution alleging she had been responsible for as many as 40 deaths. She admitted to one murder, that of Alfaro, and told the police her motive was lingering resentment regarding her own mother's treatment of her. Barraza confessed that she associated her elderly victims with her mother, and believed that she was helping society by killing them. In order to gain the trust of her victims, Barraza posed as a government official who worked in social welfare. Because of this, Barraza is placed in the caregiving category of female killers. On March 31, 2008, she was found guilty on 16 charges of murder and aggravated burglary, including 11 separate counts of murder. She was sentenced to 759 years in prison. Since sentences imposed in Mexican courts are generally served concurrently, but the maximum sentence under Mexican law is 60 years, she will most likely serve the full sentence in prison. Okay, guys and girls listening to this, that was the case of La Mataviejitas, or the old lady killer. And just to give you an idea of how unprecedented this case was here in Mexico, that sentence, her sentence was 759 years, and it was at the time the longest sentence ever given here in Mexico. Right now it's the second longest, but you know, just to give you an idea of how unprecedented this case was. And my final thoughts are, you know, like, obviously, if you have heard of, read, or, you know, watch any kind of crime investigation, you know that killers usually have a pattern of having a bad childhood, but that doesn't excuse them from committing all these heinous and horrible crimes, right? You have to feel sorry for her, though. Like, a lot of the times when I hear, like, you know, like, the horrible things that some of these killers experience during their childhoods, like, it breaks my heart that, I don't know, they were probably doomed from the start, you know, like, because they have a bad childhood and then they continue to have, like, a bad life, you know. But yeah, as for the other thing that I wanted to note, again and again through the case, you can see that, you know, if the police just had thought that maybe, just maybe, like, there was a possibility that a woman had committed these crimes, like, I can't help but wonder, maybe they would have caught La Matavijitas sooner, you know, like, that was just so dumb of the police that they thought. And I guess I understand, like, the reasoning was that different reports had stated, you know, different testimonies had stated that it was like a woman that kinda resembled a man. And when you think about it, she was a wrestler, so of course she was a bit more muscular. And the police thought that because in Mexico City there's like an area with a lot of transvestite prostitutes, you know. So I understand that the police must have thought, okay, so there is this area that is close to where this is all happening, so obviously, like, it's a muscular woman, it's probably the other way around, and it's like a muscular man dressed as a woman. That's what the police thought, right? But I don't know, it kind of infuriates me. Like, if they just had contemplated that maybe they had it all wrong and it was actually a woman, a muscular woman. I mean, when you think about it, a muscular woman, like, you could think, okay, maybe it's a wrestler, maybe it's a woman that, I don't know, it's very fit or whatever. But no, they had to go with the sexist angle of, okay, like, this had to have been made by a man. And I just think that some lives were lost because of that assumption, which it's like, it sucks, right? Oof. Well, I have nothing more to say, guys and girls listening to this. I will probably be making more content like this, cases, criminal cases. I probably will be checking out cases that happened here in Mexico and I guess aren't really well known outside of Mexico, and I will try to cover them. So if you are interested in criminal cases and stuff like that, please subscribe here on YouTube. And also, if you have Twitch, check my Twitch account because I'll probably be streaming. Like, my plan is to stream Reddit content there, like from r/unresolved mysteries, talk about mysteries and stuff like that. So anyway, thanks for watching and bye.